What is up, everybody? I think my live might actually be working correctly. Oh my goodness. So I will give it a second. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, look at me. Okay. Let me make sure my video's on. That would help. Start video. That would help. Yay. We are live. Hello, everybody. It's me, Juniper Bloom Mystique. I am an Ascension Master, Master Healer, and Divine Guide. It's a little bit delayed from what I see. You should see my face pop up any second now. It is live. Yay, it's working. Okay, so I wanted to come on today and talk about Brian Kohberger. I was going to do this one live. I want to do more lives throughout this channel from here on out. So every now and then I'll do a live one. Some of you know who this case is or about this case or who this guy is, right? Brian Kohberger. He is the one who has been arrested and until proven guilty, right? He is considered innocent, so to speak. In the case of the Idaho murders, these were the 4 college students who were found in Idaho murdered not too long ago. The victims were Kaylee Goncalves, I hope I said that right, who was 21, Madison Mogan, who was 21, Zaina Kernodle, who was 20, and Ethan Chapin, who was also 20. And I can understand how the judgments pronounce their names, so forgive me if I did. Those were the 4 individuals who were brutally murdered. Back in, I'm still learning about this case. So the way I do these, you guys, is I don't like to do a lot of research on them until I ask spirit about it. The reason I do that is because I don't want what I get to be any form of my opinions, right? I don't really pay attention to these things. Obviously the case is everywhere. His name is everywhere. His face is everywhere. And I kept thinking to myself, is he really guilty? So there's this weird air about it. Like, is he guilty or innocent? And so I really wanted to ask spirit about that. Okay. This was the Idaho murders. And they talk a lot about who he is, who the victims are. They were all college students going to, I believe, the University of Idaho. Brian Kohberger, however, was not going to the same university. He was trying to become a law student, basically. And so there really was no link. Here's the thing. Okay, what I learned is the link that is tying these two together is solely some DNA that they found on the weapon and his car. Okay, I'm going to share with you my screen. All right, so the thing about this, though, is it might be touch DNA, which bothers me. This touch DNA thing is like, that could be why they think he's going to get off completely. But what ties the case together and what I had read about, that's why these were up, because I know what I got. Spirit gave me a whole bunch of stuff about this person, which was interesting because if they're alive, a lot of times they can block me from that information, but he is like an open book. And I feel that. And I find that interesting because in court, he's not speaking. They asked him to plead guilty or not guilty. He didn't speak at all, right? He didn't say a dang word. And I believe that was intentional. Now, keep in mind, he is not somebody who's not educated. He's highly educated. He's going to be a law student. He is a law student. But what ties him is the little bit of evidence they found, his car. And then there was a weapon that they found DNA of his on. Now, I would be concerned if it was touch DNA. I haven't solidified that piece of information. But they died in the early morning hours of November 13th of 2022. So not that long ago. Was it like 6 months ago? Like really not that long ago. This is all still kind of new. They quickly found this person, which to me happened quite quickly, right? You have these 4 slayings. I just felt like they had found somebody quite quickly. And at first something struck me wrong. So I'm like, let's see what spirit has to say about this one. So I did. And I'm going to show you what spirit had to say. So every now and then I'm trying to check my comments because I'm not watching that. So just be mindful. Again, the reason I do these is they started coming through for me when I had my awakening. I was doing things through the ascension, bringing about the ascension. And I would have spirits come through and I could see how they died. I would have people asking me like, what happened to this person out of the blue? And so it's kind of when I realized I could do it. I do find joy in clearing it out of the air, but that's really my main purpose. And so all I ask is that you just be open to what I say and what I share, kind of put it in our pocket, right? Because sometimes what I get does not match what the collective is pushing out. And so people find that to be like, well, that didn't happen. That couldn't happen. And I would say, just hold on to it, right? Let's just put it in our pocket. Okay. So whatever it is I get, we're just going to put it in our pocket and we're going to sit on it until it's time for it to rise. Okay. This guy was also pulled over, you guys. You may have heard about this. He was pulled over before his arrest, right? And that's been on the news. He was pulled over with his father. And I think for tailgating, which I find really odd. I don't know about you guys, but I've never known anybody to really get pulled over in my town for tailgating. Otherwise, we'd have so many people pulled over all the time. So I found that very strange. It was 2 traffic stops that they interrupted, almost 10 minutes apart. Okay, 15 days before his arrest. He and his father were driving home from Washington State University for winter break to the family's home in Pennsylvania. Okay, so that's where he was going. Brian Kohberger was to Washington State University, and the other ones were in Idaho. So there was no connection as far as that goes. It is rather strange. The journey interrupted by 2 traffic stops almost 10 minutes apart in Indiana for tailgating. Police body cam video shows Kohberger and his father talking to them. And then when the judge asked for the plea, he stood silent. I feel like there's relevance in that. A lot of people talked about that. I'm going to tell you what I get from spirit. Okay, I almost thought for a second that he would be deemed innocent. I kind of really did think that. I'm not going to lie. Because he has this aura about him. He has this energy about him. He's walking tall, like he did not do it. And you can feel that in his energy whenever he is presented on media or anywhere. It literally is just a feeling of like he didn't do it. Right? So take that for what it's worth. That's why I was curious into this one. That's why I really wanted to channel this one, because it is an arrogance. A lot of people use the term narcissism quite openly, quite everywhere. But I would even take that further and I would say it's a disconnect. There's an arrogance here. Okay. He is not somebody who's not educated. Okay. Let's see. I don't know all the evidence of the case. I just started kind of looking into it. So give me a second. This one says accused Idaho killer Brian Kohberger repeatedly messaged one of the victims on Instagram. Okay. He was persistent. Okay. 2 weeks before the slayings of 4 University of Idaho students last November, the man now accused of killing them sent a series of messages to one of the victims on Instagram. An investigator familiar with the case tells People. In late October, an account that authorities believe belonged to Brian Kohberger sent a greeting to one of the female victims. The source says, when he didn't get a reply, he sent several more messages to her. He slid into one of the girl's DMs several times, but she didn't respond. Basically, it was just him saying, hey, how are you? But he did it again and again. Okay, that was Madison Mogan, Kaylee Guncalves, Zaina Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were all stabbed to death in an off-campus rental home in Moscow, Idaho on November 13th. A masked intruder entered the home and killed the 4 students with a fixed blade knife. Now, Spirit wants me to go into what I got. Okay, I find this very interesting to what they're saying. So here's what I got about Brian Kohberger. Okay. He's very well educated. He is very, very smart, but to the point where he feels like he's ahead of everything, right? I'm smarter than everybody around me. And I feel like that's why he's kind of always got these smirks on his face. I feel like that is why he stood silent when they asked, so his attorney even thinks he was going to be exonerated, and he has recently been indicted by a grand jury. It's a difficult case. Okay. I feel like there is part of an instance where he could go free. And I'm going to say that because I feel it in the energy. Okay. He is, the judge had to enter the plea of not guilty. So he feels like there is a way he's going to get out of this. Okay. But I'm going to tell you again what Spirit said. So none of I talked about so far is what Spirit said. I'm going to tell you now what Spirit has said. Okay. So Brian Kohberger is 28 years old. Apparently he has a history of being rejected. He has social inequity. He's not very good socially. He doesn't do very good socializing with people in general, doesn't have a lot of friends. He's very smart. People are kind of criminalizing him, right? Like, who is this person? And so you can hear a lot of stories about, and there's even a Dateline show about it where they talk about who he was, kind of his nuances throughout life. And he definitely had some social short games, I guess you can say. But what Spirit told me is that it was him. Okay, it was him. That is what Spirit said. And I honestly thought they were going to say it wasn't. That was really my original thought, because he carries this energy of something's wrong, I didn't do it. But there's a reason for that. Okay, I really do think there's a reason for that. To him, it's like vigilante justice. And I'm going to get into that a little bit. Apparently, he has a journal. He's been journaling a lot. He had a detailed plan and description, and he knew the layout. And that is what Spirit is showing me. He literally had a blueprint. He drew this blueprint himself, so I can actually see it. I can see it on paper and almost even written in blue ink. Like, it's a detailed plan. He knows the layout of the home. He sat for a while and watched it. Okay. They also said that he would sit in his car and watch. He knew their schedules. He knew their regular movements. And so this was planned out. This was premeditated. Okay. So if anything, he should have premeditation under there, but I don't know if they'll be able to prove that all the way. But what I can tell you is they are aware that whoever did this knows the layout of that house. Okay. There was witnesses, and they are very afraid. And that was what Spirit told me. And it turns out there was witnesses. But I feel like there were really witnesses who really saw, like, who saw him. I don't know if they saw his face necessarily, but I hear they're very afraid. So they saw, I have to put that out there. They saw, okay? And they're very afraid. His beliefs are more godlike. So he believes that he is above, not necessarily above the law. He feels like the law is flawed. He feels like people are not seeing things clearly. He feels like people are wasting space. And that's what I'm getting with his energy. It's like, this is a waste of time. These are a waste of space. And I did you all justice. Okay. So one might think it was simply because he was turned down. Apparently he was rejected a lot by women. And they think, I believe that's why they think he did this. I would say it was more than that. I don't think that it was just that. Okay. I feel like, and I get a lot of chills when I say that. So it is based off rejection, but he felt that he was ridding of waste. Okay. He is a serial killer. That's what they're calling him. This was the beginning of his killing spree. There's a thirst for more. So he now currently has a thirst for more. So he is a serial killer in the making. Okay. He didn't expect to get caught. I feel like something accidentally may have happened with that, because I feel like he's a little shocked that he got caught. And I feel like he really does feel like he's going to get away with it. Keep in mind, he has criminal background. He's been going to school for law, for criminalization, for whatever, an attorney, whatever it was. So here's the thing about that too, he's a serial killer. It's the beginning stages, and there's a thirst for more. Since he was about 4 or 5 years old, he has been fantasizing about his victims. Okay. moving and piling up bodies. So when he was a little kid, he would literally see like all these bodies, and he was proud of his accomplishment. It was like number 1, number 2, and they would just pile up, and it was piling up bodies. And so I feel like almost like a natural born serial killer. Apparently his parents had tried to get him therapy, but he was too smart. So he would outsmart everything, outwit everything. And that's why there's this arrogance about him. So I don't think it's necessarily narcissism. I feel like it's a detachment. It's beyond that. Like it really truly is. It's that, but it's like that times 22. Okay. But there has been signs. His mother and father were afraid. There were always signs since he was like 2 or 3 years old that something was going on. It also says, so he would sit in his car, he would watch, he knew the schedules, a regular movement, mastermind, irritated by those he feels are a waste of space. One he deems lack value. Souvenirs, he took underwear and panties or bra or both. So he took some souvenirs, that's what they're saying. But rather than just being rejected, he feels like these are people who lack value in the world. They don't understand the value of life in his mind. So, and I also know this was like a party house, right? So there's like a lot of drugs going through there, and you would think that that would be related to who murdered them. That was my first thought. Maybe it was like a drug deal gone bad, or maybe there was like something else here. What Brian Kohberger thinks, the way I feel like he thinks, the way that I'm seeing him thinking is like they don't value anything. They don't value their bodies. They're not valuing anything at all. And in his mind, he's doing justice. So this is what they call vigilante justice. He is ridding the world of waste. That's the way he's looking at this. So why should they be valued if they're constantly doing drugs, if they're promiscuous? Because that's what I feel like here is there was some promiscuity going on. There was in his mind, okay, and they were drug users, and they just lacked value in space. And so he was going to rid the world. He was doing the world a favor in his mind. And the thing is it's not like the straw that broke the camel's back. He just finally had enough. Okay. But here's another part that I want to throw out here. And this is what Spirit told me. And I found this interesting because after Spirit said this, I did some research and it kind of makes sense. He wanted to create a sadistic weapon. Okay, so in his mind, he was going to have a signature mark. And it was his own weapon. And I see it as a knife. I see it as a knife that he was going to stick into his victims, and it was going to do something incredible that no other knife could do. So somehow like create carnage or some kind of signature mark. And it had to do with this knife that he was going to create. That's one of the first things that I wrote down. He wanted to create a sadistic weapon as a signature mark. So he was going to do this continually. This was like a way of vigilante justice. He mocks the justice system. He feels like there is no justice being served basically anywhere. That's why he mocks what he does. And I feel like that's why he stood up and made no comment at all in court when they asked for his guilty plea or not guilty plea. Yeah, like he really just didn't care at all. I am just going to look for comments, make sure there is none. Okay. It is whatever. I kind of took this channel from my other channel because the other channel, I do a lot of ascension things and people are getting confused on who I am and what I do. So this one is new. So welcome. If you want to see me do things to activate the planet, by the way, activate pyramids, free Jesus' soul, that kind of stuff, it's all on my other channel and recorded and witnessed. So I will encourage you guys to check out both channels. And there's some other things that you might enjoy as well. But for this channel, for this purposes, I feel very strongly about what I get from Spirit. Okay, that's why I did the Bob Saget one. What I got from Spirit was different from what they were putting out, and now they're proving it more and more like what I said. So, like I said, just take what I say and put it in your pocket, because we don't know why Spirit says what they say. Okay, they know more than we do. So again, his beliefs were godlike. He had a plot for more. He now has a thirst for more. Okay, but I think this was ingrained in him. I think from the time he was 2 or 3, he would literally fantasize about bodies piling up that he caused to pile up. But the most important thing here, you guys, is there's a journal somewhere. That's what Spirit's pointing to, with a detailed plan and a description. He knew the layout of the home. There was witnesses, but they were very afraid. He has godlike beliefs. Okay, so he feels like the justice system is a joke. He really does. He feels like it's all a joke, and he feels like he covered his tracks beyond belief. Okay. And they're saying he's a virgin, but he wanted to create a sadistic weapon with a signature mark. So he wanted to create a knife. That's what I hear, is a knife. And this is going to be a different kind of knife, one that doesn't exist. It's going to cause like mass carnage, right? Like I'm going to stick it in and it's going to rip out chunks or a big massive part, or just something brutal, something very brutal. Now, if you understand the case, apparently he had bought a weapon from Amazon. He bought a knife like weeks before. And I remember seeing something about the Dateline piece where I don't know if they're assuming or if it's like a criminal profiler, but they're saying that he practiced using that knife. I find that to be very interesting for what I got, that he wanted to create a sadistic weapon as a signature mark. Okay, so in his mind, this is vigilante justice. You know, kind of like those guys who go and kill off women who are sex workers and stuff, and they think they're doing justice, right? Can stem from mother and father issues as a child. I honestly don't think that's this guy. This guy literally, in his mind, he's just tired of the flawed system. He's tired of people who don't care about their bodies and their minds. He's just tired of the wasted space, people who can't value something that's valuable. And that's the way he's thinking about it. It's like a godlike belief. Not necessarily like I'm going to rid the world of these and nobody's going to notice they're gone. But it was more like they're not valuing their own life. So why should he? That's kind of the energy I get. And you would think, well, why not prostitutes in that case? Or why not something like that? But I do believe he was well aware of like the drug usage. And then maybe he did hit on them because they said it was based off of rejection, but also he felt he was ridding of waste, like vigilante justice. And that's the way his mind operates. And he would watch them. I'm trying to see like, where did he run into them? Where was the connection? And I feel like this is somebody like of somebody he knew of somebody he knew. That's kind of how the connections came into play. Yeah. Because I don't know. I feel like it was somebody he knew of. And that's how the tie came in for him getting in contact with them. And maybe he thought they were really pretty girls, right? Very pretty girls. But then it makes you wonder, well, why did he go in and kill them all? Why not just one of them? Why did he plan to do this? Why that specific time frame? He knew they were home. He was well aware. He knew the house layout. I can't reiterate that enough. So it was planned. I feel like it was just an opportunity that arose in that moment, and he wasn't going to miss it this time. So I feel like there was another chance and he missed that opportunity. And that's how he felt. So he wasn't going to miss this one this time. And it's almost like he goes into a state of psychosis. And when he came out of it, he's well aware. So it's not like multiple personalities, but it's more like, I feel justified because I'm ridding the world of waste. They have no value. And that's the way he's thinking about it. And I mean, nobody harm. This is just what's coming through. Okay. Serial killer in the beginning, thirst for more. So now he has a thirst for more bloodshed. Since he was 4 or 5 years old, he would have fantasies. His parents noticed something since he was about 2 or 3. His fantasies were quite dark. but he also, this wanting to create a sadistic weapon sticks out to me the most. So Brian Kohberger wants to create a signature mark. It was a sadistic weapon. And so it does tie into that. I feel like that's the rejection based, right? This somewhat complex of, I am good enough. Like I need to prove that. And what a waste. Yeah. But you guys, I'm hoping that they'll like find some journal. There's some journal, and then he took some souvenirs, and that's what they're saying. So he literally took some souvenirs, and it's underwears and panties, like panties and a bra. He took some souvenirs. What he did with them, I don't exactly know. They're still somewhere. Like they just haven't found them. And then a journal where he detailed the layout. He knew the layout. And then again, the witnesses of are like, they're afraid. They're deathly afraid. And that's what they keep saying. I feel like what they're telling me about the witnesses is they are still like afraid that like it's not done. They're afraid for their own safety to this day. So I do want to reiterate that. The witnesses are still afraid for their safety to this day. Can you imagine if this guy got out? Maybe that's what they're afraid of. Like, what if we say these things and he gets out and he kills our whole family? I don't know. There's definitely witnesses. So there's some evidence here. But if they're going off of touch DNA, we've got a problem. But there is other evidence. And I'm curious to know what kind of weapon he wanted to create as his signature mark. A sadistic weapon, signature mark, wanted to create. Not a coincidence that he ended up buying a knife off Amazon, and that is what he killed them all with. And I'm trying to remember. So I find this interesting. So they're saying one individual, Bethany Funk, another roommate who currently resides in Nevada, agreed to meet with Kohberger's attorneys for a sit-down interview. She made the decision following pressure from defense counsel to forcefully testify in the case preliminary trial due to their claiming that she had information exculpatory to the defendant. So meaning that she supposedly had information that could exonerate him. So I'll be curious to see how this all comes out. All I know is Spirit did say there were witnesses. They're just very afraid. So, again, I'll be very curious to see how this one comes out. If there's any more evidence that comes up, they are saying that, according to Spirit, there's more evidence. He's just very smart. He's not unaware of how these things play out. A fixed blade knife is what he used. So they arrested the 28-year-old graduate student and teaching assistant at Washington State University. He was charged with 4 counts of murder and 1 count of felony burglary. He was arrested at his parents' house on December 30th. He waived his extradition to Idaho, meaning he voluntarily agreed to return to the state to face the charges against him. He was transported back to Idaho on January 4th. So the authorities remain tight-lipped about the alleged motive in the attack. Okay, they have not publicly discussed the relationship between Kohberger and the victims. Kohberger's now deleted Instagram account, which was viewed by people before it was removed, followed the accounts of Mogan, Goncalves, and Kernodle, but there was no public interaction. It's unclear why Kohberger didn't get a response to his messages, but authorities say the victim may have missed them completely. She may not have seen them because they went into message requests. Okay, so at that point, he had not, they're trying to figure out the motives. From what I see is it was rejection, but he also felt like he was ridding of waste. Another thing I read is that they are charging him due to a knife found. So I'm just trying to find that really quick. Okay, so meanwhile, authorities were able to link the 28-year-old to the killings with DNA found on a knife sheath at the crime scene. Okay, found on a knife sheath, right? So something you slip it into and out of. And a surveillance video that showed a car similar to his near the crime scene around the time of the murders. In the past, Kohberger's former lawyer has said he expected his client to be exonerated. So you see what I'm saying? They don't think there is enough evidence at all. And so if it is touch DNA, they're not specifically saying, I can't remember where I heard it was touch DNA. That's the one thing that concerns me. Touch DNA to me is a joke. It really is. Like I said, it'll be interesting. So that's what they got him on. Okay, surveillance video showed his car. It was a similar car to his leaving the crime scene. The messages, I guess, that were part of the evidence. But I'm curious to know what the witnesses say, but they're very afraid. So there's some kind of, you know how like you have PTSD? I feel like that's what the witnesses are going through. So we'll see where this goes, you guys. Okay, according to spirit, it is him. According to spirit, he had a plan. He's a serial killer in the making, and he also wanted to develop his own knife, which kind of makes sense for some of the stuff they were profiling about him. Yeah, let's sit on it. I'm going to put this one in our pocket and see where it takes us. Okay. For those who do watch this video, thank you very much for doing so. I would say if they can go and try to find where his souvenirs might be found, or some kind of journal where he actually mapped out the details of the home. Somehow he has a blueprint and it's written in a book and I can see it. It's almost like in blue ink. It was like a blueprint of the home and it was just his doing, like upstairs, bedrooms, balcony, I can see. And he had a plan. I don't think it was just one victim that he wanted to take out though. I feel like he wanted them all. How do you take out just one in that place, right? I feel like he felt like he was ridding the world of waste. So that is what I got. So much love to all of you who actually do watch this video and join me. I thank you. I'm a little bit different, but I like what I do. So I'm going to keep doing it. Some of you might find it and need it and be curious. Until next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I've got some other stuff like activating pyramids today. So I will see you later.